We're hearing tonight from Vice President Harris for the first time since her concession speech after the election with Donald Trump about 3 weeks ago. This is in a virtual call that happened where Harris was thanking grassroots supporters and telling them to keep up the fight that fueled her 107-day campaign.
I know this is an uncertain time. I'm clear-eyed about that. I know you're clear-eyed about it. And it feels heavy. And I just have to remind you, don't you ever let anybody take your power from you. You have the same power that you did before November 5th.
That message is coming as the team behind her campaign is also speaking out about what they think went wrong. This was in a candid interview that happened with Pod Save America, where one senior advisor to the campaign, Stephanie Cutter, explained Harris's struggle to distance herself from an unpopular President Biden.
We were never going to satisfy anybody. She felt like she was part of the administration, so why should she look back and cherry pick some things that she would have done differently when she was part of it? And she had tremendous loyalty to President Biden. Imagine if we said, well, we would have taken this approach on the border. Imagine the round of stories coming out after that of people saying, well, she never said that in a meeting, or what meeting when she said this, or I remember when she did that. And it wasn't going to give us what we needed because it wouldn't be a clean break.
My Democratic source tonight is Congressman Tom Suozzi of New York, and it's great to have you here, Congressman, because you always speak so bluntly about your party. You know, we talked about that with your election win. And so first, just on hearing from Harris tonight, her message to grassroots supporters, what do you make of that?
Well, thanks, Caitlin. Thank you so much. And listen, people have just got to recognize that we've got to deal with the reality in front of us. President Trump is going to be the president again. The Republicans are going to control the Senate, and they're going to have a narrow majority in the House. And we have to do our jobs to, in some cases, resist, fight back against things we think are irresponsible, like we did when President Trump was president before, when he tried to get rid of the Affordable Care Act, to get rid of DACA. But in other cases, we have to work together with the administration to accomplish things that the American people want done. Things like the border, for example. Let's work together to solve problems and make America a better place and try and move forward together as a country.
Well, and as everyone's looking back, you know, with Harris specifically, I see what you're saying about what it's going to look like come January. But when you hear from Harris, when you hear from her campaign and the advisors who talk about this is why they felt like they couldn't come out and distance themselves from very unpopular positions on immigration, something that was a cornerstone of your campaign. How do you hear that based on your experiences?
Well, listen, you're the vice president of the United States of America, working with the president. You've been picked to this very august job by the president. And there's a human aspect here. She's loyal to the president. I mean, that's understandable. He gave her the opportunity of a lifetime. So that loyalty is an admirable quality. You know, if ever people want to second guess things, I thought she ran a good campaign. One of the lacking things was there wasn't enough vision for the future about what you were going to do to solve the problems of the future. But that's what it is. I mean, we are where we are now. Now we need to look forward as to what we need to do to make the country a better place.
Yeah, they also defended the media strategy and what that looked like, and you know where she was going, and what it looked different for both candidates. Frankly, this time around, Trump was obviously quite prolific on podcasts, and there was discussion of her doing Joe Rogan and sitting down with him, given just how many people he reaches. And of course, Rogan wanted Harris to come to Texas, to his studio. That was difficult, they said, on the time. But listen,
I want to go on Joe Rogan. I'm ready to go on Joe Rogan.
Okay, well, if he's watching,
the media is.
We'll make sure he knows that.
The media is so fractured. The media is so fractured today. You know, I pay a lot more attention than I used to local papers, to the weekly papers. Everybody who reads a local paper is voting in the election. I look at my daily paper locally. I look at the local news programs. I look at the national news programs like yours. We also have to look a lot more at social media than we used to and figure out how to get into different audiences. And we have to do some of the new media in podcasts. It's all very fractured. People are getting their news from different sources. And we have to figure out, as elected officials, all of us, but certainly the Democrats as a party, how to get into all these different places that are so fractured so that we can carry the same message through each of these different platforms as to how we're going to make people's lives better, how we're going to fight to make them safer, how we're going to make them healthier, how we're going to make them more economically prosperous, how we're going to address the concerns they have about the border, how we're going to address climate change. We have to talk in all of these different mediums to try and get the message out there.
Yeah.
It's a new world as far as media, and we have to recognize that.
Well, I'm glad you point out that that's how you feel, because I want you to listen to what Stephanie Cutter said about just ultimately why that Rogan sit down did not pan out.
We did go to Houston, and she gave a great speech at an amazing event.
The Beyonce event.
Yes, well, I'm going to call it reproductive freedom, and because Texas is ground zero for the impact of these Trump abortion bans. We were hoping to be able to fit it in around that, and ultimately weren't able to do it. As it turns out, that was the day that Trump was taping his Joe Rogan.
I don't think anyone would, in good faith, argue that is what made or broke this election. But do you think it would have helped her to take a tack like what you were just kind of laying out there?
You know, I have no idea as to whether it would change the election or not. A lot of it has to do with, what's the message? What would be the message in the Joe Rogan interview that would appeal to what is probably a young male audience? I think that the Vice President Harris did an excellent job reaching out to women throughout the country. And there was a big gender gap, as we all know. And Trump leaned into that with Vance and leaned into it with his Hulk Hogan and the football play. And it worked. I mean, it worked as far as getting him that audience. But a lot of this looking backwards stuff is sometimes very frustrating. We've all got different opinions as to what it is. I'm looking forward. People reject extremism. They want us to use common sense. They want us to secure the border. They want us to protect their public safety. They want to do a better job to make sure that they can live the American dream so they can make enough money so they can buy a house, educate their kids, pay for health insurance,
So
and
lay that
retire
out
one
for
day
me.
without being scared. That's
In the next 30 seconds or so, lay that out for me, what that looks like over the next 2 years for your party.
Democrats have got to get back to the basic message of talking to people about what they care about. And to do that, elected officials need to listen to the people. I remember when President Trump first won in 2016, I went to a big postmortem, 50 people around the table, and I remember a union guy say, hey, the Democrats used to show up at the church picnics and the bars. We don't see them anymore. That's a symbol to me that we're not out with the people, listening to the people about what they care about. If you listen to the people, you'll have the confidence to stand up against the experts, to stand up against the constituency groups, because you'll know that's what the people want.
We'll see what that looks like over the next 2 to 4 years. Congressman Tom Suozzi, great to have your perspective. Thank you.